Welcome to LDC Now episode 8.1. We are established by and for the Linux Distro Community and supporters of free and open source software. Don't forget to interface with our magnificent mothership at www.linuxdistrocommunity.com. Chat with us on IRC, join us on the forums, or shoot at us on game night. It's about damn time for LDC Now. How you doing, guys?
I'm good.
Hey,
I like the
guys.
episode.
Episode, dude. It's like an amoeba.
We're 8.1 because 8 wasn't good enough. We're kind of like Microsoft in that respect.
Yeah, you can always add a 0.1 and start over.
But we get a packed show today, man. Run it down for us a little bit, Morningstar, and give them a little intro to the good stuff.
Definitely. Today in our newbie corner, we're actually going to talk about some basic Vim commands. We've got an app pick Linus, which is a really, really cool application that we've all actually taken the time to mess around with in the last week or two. We're talking about ways that we've decided that Debian needed to break and how we have succeeded in doing so. We got a little bit of news about some things that kind of grinds our gears about Windows 10. We're going to talk a little bit about GNOME Builder and touch on the Steam bug that came along just in some of the news today. Yeah, it's going to be a pretty good show.
That's why we're 8.1, baby.
With our new Metro desktop.
Blah.
So yeah, let's kind of jump in and talk about some of these Vim commands for newbies. For those of you who aren't really as familiar with Vim, Vim's a terminal-based text editor, and there actually is a GUI version like GVim, if that's correct on what it's called.
Yeah, it's GVim, and I think there's other types of GUI Vims out there.
Yeah,
The one I like best is called Cream, although it's kind of hard to find.
Yeah, I've also noticed that there's a lot of other applications out there too that have some love for Vim and share some of the Vim shortcuts for within the application. Like DWB did that for the browser and some other places like that.
Yeah, I used to carry around a Vim cheat sheet in my wallet for about 5 years.
Yeah, well, actually, I have a Vim cheat sheet on my Android phone, so that's, hey, anywhere you can learn Vim commands, it's always a plus.
Hey, I got the ArchWiki app on my tablet, so just in case things go badly.
Oh yeah, I got the Android news too, so Vim, yeah, sorry, getting off topic.
No worries. I'm just letting you guys run with it for now. So some really simple commands in Vim. So when you're actually using this text editor and you're in normal mode where you can actually set up commands, typing colon is something you'll always do before every command you type. You can use commands like :q, which will quit the file. If you've been writing and you didn't save, it'll actually halt you, so you'd have to put like a :q and then an exclamation point in order to quit. And similarly with write, and also which is W to write to the file name and stuff like that.
Yeah, there's also another command that I use a lot. It saves and writes it at the same time, and that's :x. So if you redo one of your configs for i3 or Awesome or whatever thing that Morningstar is on this week, you just do :x, it will save it and exit at the same time.
Yeah, you can also do that with WQ as well to quit with and write. So one of the things I talked about was saying like when you're in normal mode, and that gets a little bit into what Vim is really. There's a couple different modes. Like if you want to type, Vim by default doesn't let you edit the text until you actually go into insert mode, so that you don't accidentally mess up what you're writing and have to screw it all up. So there's some things like A for appending text after the count times. I is to insert text. So if you want to get into a mode where you can actually edit the text file, you'll press I.
And then if you want to insert go into insert mode at the like the beginning of the text, you would just do capital I.
Yeah,
Most-
you can use. Oh, sorry.
No, that's fine. The most common one that I use is anytime that I have to add something to the end of my file, I press A, because then it shifts over one from what you have. So say there's a letter I on the screen and I can't want to continue the sentence on there, I would just, put my cursor over I, press A, that goes into insert mode also, and then you can just continue typing until you hit exit or escape key to get out of insert mode.
Yeah, there's a lot of things Vim can do. There's like visual mode for kind of highlighting text and deleting it. One of the nice things I know too is you can actually delete text while in normal mode. So if you've just got to take out, like if you've got a commented out line in a config file and you want to just uncomment it, you can do that without messing around with too many different modes. There's a lot that Vim can really do, and the cool thing about Vim is also there's a lot of plugins for it. Like I myself use Airline, which has some nice symbols, and it's just a nice status line. So Vim is also really, really configurable.
Yeah. I also think I was, when I first got into Vim, I was watching a video tutorial, and I guess if you're working, say, in Java or PHP or in Python, I think there is a plugin that will set the correct spacing that you need for your code that you're trying to do. So if you're try to copy paste inside of a Vim, I've noticed that sometimes the spacing is absolutely horrid. So you just press this certain key command and it will space everything according to what it's supposed to be.
Yeah, one more thing I'll throw out there for a Vim command that's one of my favorites is :set space or paste. So :set space paste, so that if you want to actually paste stuff in from another file, it keeps the spacing correct instead of getting all goofy with the spacing as well. I will definitely make sure we put a link to this cheat sheet that we have up for Vim, so that people who are looking at starting and messing around with Vim can have some kind of thing to go by.
Yeah, and I'll also we'll make a link to the videos that I watched when I first got into Vim. They are well done, and the guy knows what he's doing for sure.
Oh, that'd be awesome. Yeah, I personally have used Vim for quite a while, so it's a nice one. It's a nice text editor, and like you were saying, there's a lot of plugins. You can set it up for an IDE and stuff like that as well.
Yeah, I've always was a nano guy because it was just that was the first thing that I knew about, and it was nice and simple. You just do Control X and then save and blah blah. But I'm really liking Vim. That's one of the first things I install anytime I have to install an OS or anything like that. I always definitely get Powerline or Airplane mode or whatever the heck it's called, and Vim for sure.
Yeah, that's how I feel about Ranger for sure.
At one point in time, I was a Pico guy on Unix, and then eventually Nano, and then I went to Vim, and now I just float around however I feel like it right now. And so, but it's good to find those tutorials on YouTube and Vim Tutor and stuff like that, and get a good idea and try it out. If it saves you time and it's functional, then use it, for God's sake.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, we got a nap pick for you today. We're going to talk about Linus or Linus. How do you want to pronounce that one? I don't know.
I say Linus.
I see Linus too. It's official.
All right, it works for me. So yeah, Linus is a security auditing tool for Unix and Linux-based systems. It scans the system and checks for security defenses and issues that you have come up with, whether or not you have malware detection, or whether or not, in what we'll talk about later, you might have or have not a grub password set up. and it kind of gives you a hardening scale at the end of the checkup, as well as a log that will give you some advice on how to harden your system. It's a really, really cool application. All three of us have been messing around with it over the last couple of weeks here.
Yeah, and I'm the insecure one of the group so far. I only have a hardening level of 58, where Morningstar is like 68, and who knows what kleptos is, 100.
Dude, if you
95.
tell them, you can't tell them, they're gonna come after you, Irish.
Yeah, whatever.
Hey, I'm at a 95 on OpenSUSE out of the box. Okay, but here's what's great about Linus is that not only will it tell you like what's wrong, like it even told me like there was some kind of packages that had some sort of incorrect, like incorrect debug stuff and some other like stuff that was kind of shady. But it'll tell you how to fix the problems that it sees. It'll tell you what ports are open, and it will also interface with other well-known, packages like whether it's Rootkit Hunter or Check Rootkit and stuff like that. And so it integrates with those tools as well, and gives you a well-rounded idea of how secure your system is and what you can do to fix those problems. And so instead of saying, okay, you're this much secure, you're this much secure, well, here's how you fix it. Here's how to fix the issues you already have, and that's a great way of doing things. That way you're proactive.
Yeah, I have noticed though, when I ran mine on mine, it said they found the bootloader, and then I did set up a grub2 password system, so I would have to input a username and then my password. But for whatever reason, Linus doesn't pick that up, so I know I'm a little bit more secure than it shows.
And now you're just making up excuses, man.
Uh-huh.
No, yeah, you're probably right. Either it's like a version issue or something else, or but also like there's different ways to run it. Like you can run it where it asks for user input each time. You can just run it and get that report. It takes a while because Linus goes through a lot of stuff, and checks a lot of different things, and it's really great. And you can use it with Tripwire. You can use it with I forget the other tools where you can check for where it does like a MD5 sum on all the files and see which files have been changed and not, and and Tripwire does that. And so it's like a one tool in all, and you can add certain other features and functions with extra tool sets. So it's like one tool that works with everything.
One thing I did notice too about it was that log file where it actually explains what you need to do. It's actually really readable. It's a good report. It's pretty, even for somebody who's kind of new to trying to be secure. You can make sense of it, and that's a great thing, highlight for me, is that it's very readable.
Also, with let's say if you run into a certain issue that you could probably fix, sometimes it'll actually give you the link to you can go and click on and find out how to fix that issue, which is also awesome.
I guess I must have missed the log part of it. I've always run the pen testing portion of this, so I guess I'll have to look at the log to see what I need to do for sure.
Yeah, what I've noticed is really great is to run sudo linus-c, and that'll make sure that it'll actually have access to some of the root stuff, which will give you a more full report of what you're doing. And then it'll come out, and at the end of it, it'll give you your hardening index, and it'll give you where the log file is stored, and you can go through and read through that.
Yeah, and if you're on the sort of corporate side of things, there is an enterprise version that goes even further hardcore, and so it's nice to have it, like say, free open source version. But if you want to go further, you can do that, and that is available to you. But it's good to check these things. A lot of times we sort of take our Linux system for granted that we're secure because we're running Linux, and that's that. But we're not. I mean, we're secure than most Windows machines out of the box, of course. But we always need to check and maintain and make sure everything's correct and set up properly and secure. That way we don't run into problems.
Yeah, I definitely feel like it's up to the Linux gives you the resources to be secure, but I definitely feel like it's up to the user to make sure that you are secure.
But also, it wouldn't fix if you run Steam and then you move the folder and totally wipes out your system.
We'll get to that one later, won't we?
Oh God, that's horrible, man. Horror story.
I've also noticed that this is pretty good too because I've always encountered that Linux people, like the really arrogant ones, they are like, "Oh, I'm using Linux, so I'm never going to get a virus." And then they get this self of, complacency until like some mega virus is going to come and like wipe out the entire hard drive.
We talked last couple weeks ago, that the whole landscape on attacking has changed, and that Linux, we are going to face some threats, and we do face some more threats, and it's not. I mean, we have the resources to solve them, where some operating systems really don't.
Yeah, I mean, it could be that you're on Ubuntu and you set up a PPA, and those PPAs have bad packages. I mean, it could happen. Or you download, some package and install it, and then it's a bad package. I mean, people on Windows who go to download.com and grab a bunch of stuff and install it, they're gonna get owned quick. But with us, there's a lot more tools that we have to check these things than they do. And then, of course, we don't have to go out and buy, $5,000, antivirus, anti-malware tool set to go check it all out. We have, these tools available to us, straight out of the box with Linux.
Yeah, plus, if you're pretty adept with, computer code, you can take a look at it yourself to see if there's any like backdoors or anything fishy about it, and then you can run it. Like all these, it's really cool that open sources, you can see the code and what exactly is going on in there.
So, hearing us bounce back and forth a little bit about Windows users, I think it's a really good time to jump into what's going on with this new Windows 10 stuff. We found a really cool, Kleptos actually found this really cool article about some of the things that Windows 10 has kind of done to sort of take from the open source community and call their own and rejoice about it. I wish they would take some security features, but, wishing is wishing.
Don't get too crazy there.
It amazes me what Microsoft does, and inside of their echo chamber of what they think is great for their system. I can say honestly, I think my favorite version of Windows, if I have a favorite version, was probably Windows Server 2000 or possibly XP when I was actually using Windows back in the days. I had to because I do it the work, but now it is some unholy, blob of crap. And now they're taking that crap even further, and that, well, Windows 8, people didn't like it, so we go to Windows 8.1, and, well, people didn't really like that too much, and so now we're going to go to Windows 10, because if we go to Windows 9, they think that we're going just in the direction of Windows 8. So Windows 10 will be so different from Windows 8, but it's the same damn thing. But instead, they took some ideas from Linux, from Ubuntu. They took a KDE launcher and went wild with it, where it takes up half your screen. It's just mess.
Yeah, we'll definitely put a link to that in the show notes. There's an image of their launcher start menu idea, and it literally takes up about a third of the screen. It's pretty intense.
It's hilarious. Wow. But again, most of it is used up with those Metro apps, which again, I'm assuming you could probably get rid of some of that kind of bloat crap and slim that thing down. But yeah, it looks very cinnamony type slash KDE start menu.
Yeah, and the whole start, not just the start menu, but like the virtual desktops that they've taken and then patented. There was some talk about them patenting it years ago. There was an article that somebody brought up to me at one point, but they only patented how they see the flaws in virtual desktops and how they wanted to fix it. But now that they have their virtual desktops, I don't see a big difference in it between ours.
Virtual desktops. We've invented virtual desktops. It's awesome. It's the newest thing. It's great.
Nobody's been doing it for years, but we did it on Windows.
Yeah, Yeah, dude, but also talk about this sort of false convergence a little bit. Break that down for us. What did they call it? Ubuntu called it convergence, where you have the same interface for the tablet, the phone, and the laptop. But they called it something else. What they call it?
Oh, let's see. We have a universal Windows running on all things. And there was a talk in there about, sorry, I was reading this when you came up to it, but so they're having basically a core system that can run on all these different platforms, and it's universal app so that everything can run everywhere. Continuum, I think, is what they consider their convergence.
Now get this, guys. Okay, you've got the same sort of Metro style on all, like whether it's your phone, your tablet, your desktop, right? Now, during the pre-show, we were talking about how if you have that same system from your phone to tablet to desktop, then your phone system is going to suck because the phone size is small and you can't see the little buttons and things like that. And so, what they should have done, they should have tweaked each one for their specificity instead of going across the board using the same thing for all of them, and it's not going to work.
No, and I definitely one of the things we mentioned was that, and it works for things even on the Linux camp. Like my computer is a different device than my phone. It's a different device in my tablet. I've personally always been of the mind that we need to make 3 different interfaces because there's 3 different style devices. Things that work on my desktop, I use Awesome Window Manager. Awesome Window Manager is not going to work on my phone.
No, but it'd be great, let's say, if we had the different devices all using Linux and all pulling, let's say, from some repository, let's say Git or some place. That'd be great, and then you just tool it for the different dimensions of those systems, whether it's tablet, phone, or whatever have you. And I mean, I've used the Metro system on tablets and on phones, and I hate squares and the scrolling back and forth with your finger going through the squares. It's just disgusting. But if you're into it, you're into it. But for God's sakes, don't act like it's some new idea that they just came out with, out of the Microsoft's, guys in the techs. It's not new.
No, it's definitely not new, and it's definitely not innovation, and that's really what it's being kind of marketed as. And it's this great new idea, and it really is AOL from the 90s.
And so, if you say that all the Metro apps all run on all systems, and so there's probably some compatibility layer somewhere underneath, how will each app run on each system? I would bet that each app will run somewhat differently on all systems. On some systems, maybe desktop or tablet may run great, but on phone it may run a little less. And so, obviously the PR is in play here, but the reality may be a whole different thing.
One of the other things too that I took from reading this article was they labeled Section 10 finally a worthy rival for Linux. And even if you want to look at saying, oh, we've got this kind of knockoff of a launcher, and we've got these virtual desktops now, so now we're just like Linux. Now we're just as good. And one of the things, like we talked about earlier today, was the security side of Linux and the security side of Windows. If you're not going to fix the underlying issues with a system, you know what I mean? That's just my opinion.
Well, yeah, I mean, if you think about it now, Windows is getting into the Linux side of things, whether we're talking about containers, jails, virtualization, the whole Docker issue. But Aku Base brings up a good point in the chat room where he talks about the apps, the Metro apps. They don't have a compatibility layer. They're all written in HTML, so the layer is kind of like a browser. And so I guess it's somewhat similar to the Firefox OS type deal. And so it'll be interesting to see how all of them all run, and will they run exactly the same. And so I guess time will tell.
Yeah, definitely. This is something that we'll have to wait until it comes out to see.
But the browser itself, though, let's talk about Spartan.
Sparta. Yeah. So they are ditching IE or Internet Explorer. Thank goodness, but personally,
they should have ditched it like 5 years ago.
Well,
like
okay.
IE6.
First of all, they should not have ditched it in the first place. They just needed to, hire, more competent developers for it, because it's not that bad. It's just the security flaws and all that kind of BS. That's why a lot of people switch over to Firefox or Chrome.
Yeah, the security is really bad. Like, my mom, she runs Windows, sadly, and like every now and then, like some app is totally taking over the browser, where it has all these little things at the bar. It took over the search tools, the search engines, and everything else. And so, yeah, if you don't deal with the underlying flaws of a browser and you give it a good, nice coat of paint, it's not going to do a damn thing.
You
Yeah,
polish
definitely.
a turd, it's still a turd.
Wonderful metaphor.
But it's accurate, though. So they're calling this new one Spata for who knows what reasons. But I don't know. I haven't seen any screenshots of it or any specs of it. So it's
Oh,
I'll definitely test it out once Windows 10 comes out for sure.
I've seen a lot of press on Sparta, whatever it's called, and in places where the PR is heavy, you would swear it would, before it was even brought out, it was like the best browser you've ever seen in your entire life. And so on TechCrunch, on Gizmodo, they've been talking about it, and so really we have to get our hands on it and try it out and see, because the PR and the spin and everything else in the media is different from reality. I mean, back then they were talking about how great IE was when it really wasn't. Now, Shaggy 2 Dope in the chat room says Firefox is just as crap as Internet Explorer. I have my issues with Firefox day to day, and and I do adopt Chromium. I do use Chromium most of the time, but at the same time, it's a different animal. I think Firefox runs better than IE. Firefox is a bit more secure than IE, but IE has a lot of problems going for it.
Well, I think there was. I do listen to a few tech podcasts, and they're saying that most of the patches that they did, like last year, half of it was IE related, if not more than that.
Yeah, I heard that too. Yeah, I mean, so they were trying to put makeup on the pig, and trying to get it, but I don't know what what Sparta is based on. Is it based on WebKit? I have to find out.
Yeah, all I'm seeing is that they borrowed a lot of features from Safari, and they're trying to make it comparable to Google Chrome. But it is well overdue that they address some of the issues with Internet Explorer. So I'm kind of happy to see that that's being pushed out.
Did we go over what Microsoft is going to offer price-wise for Windows 10?
No, but that's
we
actually
did
a
not.
good point.
So, from what it looks like, anyone who's running Windows 7, Windows 8, or Windows 8.1, once it does launch, they will get it for free for 1 year only. And then you would have to pay for that after that. But I think they're trying to put so much investment in this as the next Windows 7 that all these businesses will want to upgrade to Windows 10.
Call me crazy. Call me
Crazy.
All right, thank you. But I think eventually Microsoft is going to go Chromebook style. Microsoft is going to have to adopt Linux eventually, and sort of try to take over the sort of mobile desktop space. It's got to happen, okay? Because as is, you're basically getting what you've always gotten. And while the Metro apps being HTML is nice, the idea of it, the implementation is terrible. And they're going to have to eventually do that, because while they're trying to infringe on Linux in different places with virtualization and containers and things like that, it's going to be unwieldy and it's going to be bloaty. And eventually, mark my words, they're going to come to our way and try to adopt it. Google already has, with the Chromebooks and all that, but at the still restricted access crap, and not exactly what people want. But it's light, and it has all the tool sets most average users need, and so at this point in time, they're winning against most of the other competition.
One of the things too about this whole this whole the Windows is built on what's the kernel's 20 years old. It's sloppy, and they need it. You're right. They need to clean it up. Will they adopt Linux as a way to clean it up and build it on top of it? I don't know. I don't know if I agree with that, but I definitely know that it's coming to a point where if they don't fix the roots of their issues, then they're gonna pay for it in the long run.
Well, the problem is that, like you said, you're using some very old NT technology, okay, from NT4 to NT5, okay, and that's the crux of the issue. And if you don't deal with that, everything else is the same as putting lipstick on a pig. It's just a gooey layer on top of it, and it's still the crap that's underneath. And if you don't deal with that, you're not gonna do. Nothing's gonna get done, okay? It's just PR and spin and making things look pretty, but the underlying layer is crap, and they're going to have to do away with that if they want to succeed at all.
Yeah. Also, one other thing that, sorry to switch a little bit of topics, but also on my tech podcasts that the podcast is Windows Weekly on the Twit network, and they're saying that Windows 10 might be the last major release of the Windows, and that they're going to do what we can call a rolling release, and then just roll out like new features throughout the upcoming years.
That sounds like a whole bunch of microtransactions to me.
Yes, dude, you took it out of my brain. You stole it. Dude, that just sounds like cha-ching, cash register. Okay, again, taking stuff from us again and taking stuff from, other stuff and sort of cobbling it together. I want to see this happen. I want to see the tragedy that is Microsoft updates and a rolling release. Oh my god, I'm going to get paid.
Service Pack 79.
Well, if they do that or not is, what we'll see. But it's, that's definitely like an idea that comes straight out of, open source and Linux.
Can you imagine the cruft that will go on with the rolling release and all the Windows updates, dude? Windows updates leave so much crap sprinkled across your system that it runs like a bloated pig, okay? And then you add a rolling release on top of that? Oh my god, it's gonna be lovely, dude. I can't wait.
Dude, you're gonna have to reinstall it anyway, even though it's rolling release. You're gonna have to reinstall it constantly just to get rid of the bloat.
Yeah, but we keep saying that Windows is taking a lot of stuff from the Linux world, but I do see a lot of that happening even on the Apple side. But that's besides the point.
Yeah, well, they stole the whole idea of the GNOME UI just recently, and so.
Yeah.
Hey, you steal from the best, baby. That's what you do. It's in some ways it pisses us off, and in some ways we kind of have to smile about it.
Yeah, it's definitely a compliment if all the major corporations are ripping off the communities.
When you think about it, BSD and Linux, we've had the whole container jail virtualization, pretty much locked down. We owned it, and so now they're kind of coming into our wheelhouse here, saying like, okay, guys, we'd like to do this too. You remember that article about how Windows Azure loves Linux?
Yeah, because they opened source the .NET framework, so they love Linux.
Yeah, they're gonna be adopting it eventually. Mark my words, damn it. Mark my words.
So speaking of that, we had a couple other little bits of news to talk about. We can talk about GNOME Builder. Irish had some stuff he was going to mention about that.
Well, it's just basic stuff. The latest release they're calling it GNOME Builder, but it's it's like the first alpha or something like that of the next release of GNOME 3.16. So they're doing 3.15.4, I believe it is, and you can test out the new ideas that they're going to implement in the next GNOME release. Have you guys spent a lot of time on GNOME at all recently?
I haven't spent it on there recently, but I check back on GNOME all the time. I love GNOME. I'm so glad to see it. There's a lot of on the fence this way or that way about it, and it certainly isn't GNOME 2. But GNOME 3 is kind of polishing up, and I like it. I think it's great.
No, I think it's awesome that users get a chance to sort of look inside the development of GNOME and see how things are looking for the future. I think that's a great idea. In that way, if they come off the side with some crazy feature no one wants, and you can get ahead on that. But I think that GNOME is innovating. I think it's awesome. I don't use GNOME particularly, but I do check in with it like from time to time just to see how things are, and so it's good to see that. It's good to see innovation anywhere in Linux, and good to see interaction with the users and the developers, and somehow that sort of nexus comes together.
Yeah, I definitely feel too, like with all the heat that GNOME got, I'm just glad to see them still plugging along. I'm glad to see they're still fighting because, in the beginning of GNOME 3, there was so much had changed, and all the users were really upset about it, but they were trying to create a really elegant, seamless user interface, and it's coming along. I think it's made some great progress since the early days.
Yeah,
they had a vision.
Yeah.
Didn't Linux action shows say that GNOME is like the best desktop environment out there right now?
I didn't catch that one, but I know that they had a show way back.
I heard them say something similar to that. Yeah.
It's not. Yeah, I've used it. I gave it a good fair share, like a month or two, and it was really nice. But it's easily my issue is the extensions, because if you have to have extensions just to get some basic functionality off of your desktop environment, then I don't know if it's worth that, because a lot of these extensions will break pretty quickly. And if you have, if you're reliant on these extensions, then it's like doing any testing in any of the distros, like Arch testing or Debian testing. You're like playing with fire almost, and something might break and you can't recover from it.
No, you're right. But in stable stuff like Debian or like on OpenSUSE or other things like that, then it might be able to work. But eventually, over time, you're right, those extensions are going to break, and they're going to have to integrate at least some of those extensions, at least the best ones out there.
Stuck. No, I definitely feel like I like the idea of. If they wanted to do the extensions as like modular and they were developed by the GNOME team, that'd be great. But I like the idea of being able to pick and choose what extensions I use. I think the way that they handle extensions in GNOME is really actually very well. Yes, it's up to the developer of the extension to make sure it works on the new version. But that whole extension site and things like GNOME Tweak Tool that make it easy to turn on and off extensions, I like that. I like that setup.
What I like about this is that right now you see a lot of innovation as far as KDE, and I was a big KDE 3.5 fan. I loved KDE 3.5, and I wasn't that happy with 4, but I still used it. And so they're going in their own good direction. GNOME is going in their own good direction. I would love to see XFCE, come rise from the grave and be in their own innovation. Because we need that in Linux. We need to be out there, out front. Where we always are, with virtual desktops and, and nice GUIs and things like that, where people can look at them. We may not be the top when it comes down to, raw numbers of users, but we may be tops when it comes down to servers, and nothing as far as commerce can get done without, Linux and BSD. But we are the innovators as far as is in, feature sets, as far as in operating systems, and as far as window managers and desktop environments. And so they're looking at us for their own innovation, and so we need to be that leader. And eventually all those users out there using their crap are going to be looking at us. That's why there's been a lot of articles right now talking about Mac OS users moving to Linux, because it's easy to get get Linux on a Mac. And so we're going to get there. It just takes time, and it takes a hell of a lot of innovation.
So I do want to touch on the Steam bug before we move into our wonderful time with Debian.
Yeah, so I guess recently a few people found a particular nasty bug in Steam where if you try to move some of your Steam folders and stuff like that, it will cause the home folder to be like all your stuff in there to be wiped out.
Yeah, it's pretty nasty. I know a lot of people talked about it in some depth, so we probably won't, but yeah, that's really nasty. We can probably put a link into some information on that if people haven't heard and are really interested in checking it out.
But
Ouch, man. All I can say is ouch.
Do you guys move your Steam folders anyway? Because I just let them stay where they're at. Is that like backing them up or something like that?
I don't know, but now that I know about this, I'm gonna move my Steam folder just for the hell of it.
Shaggy Cheat Open in the chat room says the shell script recursively removes everything in your own folder, dude. Ouch. You know what? I'm not a big Linux gamer. I think only thing I've played is No More Room in Hell, and I don't even think I still have that on my system. But that'd be kind of harsh, man. You try to move some stuff around. Maybe you're doing backups, or maybe you're just trying to save space on one drive or another. You move some stuff over, and all of a sudden, everything is gone. You're gonna be a sad panda for sure.
Definitely a sad panda. Yeah, so let's talk about some Debian breakage.
Okay, start off. I have a bad habit of... Go ahead,
sorry. I say, well, maybe we can set this up a little, saying what obviously we're going to cut this, set up like why we're trying to break it and stuff like that.
Yeah, I was going to jump into that, but all right, we can start in a second. So one of the things that we were discussing when we first talked about topics we would do on this here show was picking a distro and really trying to just break it. Trying to see what we could mess with, what we could tweak, things that maybe somebody who's brand new to Linux might try to change, not knowing enough about the system and what kind of repercussions they might have. And Kleptos, we did this in a VM just for the lulls of it. So Kleptos had a nice image, and we took a couple of good stabs at Debian, and I'll let you take it away, Kleptos.
Yeah, here's the thing. I remember being a newbie, and I remember breaking a lot of stuff and trying to fix the stuff and whatever have you. And some of the things that people do all the time, and we took kind of a poll in the chat room last night. A lot of newbies, run root windows all the time. They run sudo, and then they keep that window open, and they run everything from root, which is really, really bad. And so, if let's say as a normal user you try to edit something, let's say if I want to edit fstab, as a normal user, you can't write to it, okay? But if you're running a terminal in sudo or su, okay, and you try to edit something that you're not supposed to edit, and you write to it, it's ruined. And so first thing I did was all the partitions, how I had them set up, whether it's SSD or otherwise, and I changed it to something like my happy pony, and rebooted. And first thing I found out is that VirtualBox, I had a snapshot, and it kept going back to snapshot. Nothing went wrong, and I got kind of worried. But after I fixed that, it went badly. Okay, and I got a terminal. I was lucky to get a terminal from Debian, but I got a terminal. Okay, and then I had to roll back from that snapshot back to the original Debian, and then go back. Then I went and then tried to install some different graphics drivers that I didn't have, like NVIDIA or whatever have you. And then you get the black screen, and sometimes you get a terminal, and that went bad. And that is something a newbie does all the time. Okay. And then I ran shell scripts and things like that. Before I go any further, you guys want to jump in?
Yeah, I definitely feel like a lot of new users when you're actually using things like graphics drivers and you're not quite sure, you're new to the system, you're not quite sure how to set it up. I mean, you can run into a lot of problems. So I definitely have been lucky and never installed the wrong graphics drivers, but I've definitely struggled trying to at first understand the difference between the open source drivers and the proprietary drivers. And when you deal with these proprietary drivers, it can cause issues anyway, let alone if you're new and not sure how to resolve them.
Oh yes, I've had catalyst issues for years. Okay, and also, you know, a lot of newbies don't even look at the documentation at all. I literally had to stop myself from killing someone last month because this guy told me I installed Ubuntu on my system and I can't even burn a CD or mount my Android phone. And I'm like, I'm looking at it, I'm like, you know, my mouth is dropped. Like, dude, one, if you want to burn a CD, there's Bracero, and that does it out of the box. That installs on every Ubuntu. And number two, like, you went to a file manager, perhaps? And you didn't even go to a file manager. You just magically hoped it would happen and magically wondered where it would be. It just bothered me.
Yeah.
But
back to Debian.
Yeah, back to Debian. But, okay, I installed the NVIDIA drivers, okay, and I installed the proprietary ones. And, of course, I don't have an NVIDIA system. And it went to a black screen. And then I tried it again. Then I got a terminal. But then I'm a newbie. I don't know what the hell I'm doing. And so I tried to uninstall that. Well, there's an extra step in Debian that I didn't know. You had to go into xorg.conf and make those changes. And depending on what you're using, you don't have to do that. In Arch, you have to do that. In OpenSUSE, you don't. And so, you know, I didn't even pay much attention. And so everything I did didn't help because I hadn't changed the xorg files. And so it just took a while. But I did things like install PPAs from Ubuntu and totally ruined my libraries and totally ruined my GNOME system. And these are things that people do every day.
Yeah, the thing about the PPAs, that was definitely, I'm glad we did that because we talked about this with security stuff as well. You know, somebody says, oh, well, here's a PPA to install this, and here's a PPA to install that, and you're swapping out libraries. Some libraries, you're swapping out versions. I mean, you can run into all sorts of messes when you're dealing with like 4 or 5 different third-party repos, and then let alone what if there's something malicious in the actual stuff itself. But just the amount of PPAs and the conflict of all these packages, yeah, definitely.
Did you? I think there's probably another way to fork the system, like trying to. What flavor of Debian did you use? Was it the XFCE?
It was the LXD.
Okay, excuse me, because I remember that if you uninstall like whatever, when Leo Laporte was trying to use Ubuntu, people saying to uninstall Unity. So he uninstalled Unity and borked a lot of his system because, like, the basic one or the flavor that he used, like everything was intertwined with the boot up sequence. Like, no, it's supposed to do this, and he didn't do it that way. I just didn't know if it would be in the same way if you got rid of the LXDE and tried to install like GNOME or XFCE, if that would bork the system too.
No, what I did do though, which is a classic newbie thing, is I went on forums and I just ran code.
Nice.
You know when you go on a forum and they say, "Oh, you can fix this by doing this," and then that totally doesn't fix anything, but totally makes things worse. And so I boot up, and I get all kind of like library, like, okay, well you have this library, but you need this version of this. This library, you need that version of this, the version of that. And it was total bedlam.
That's great.
Well, looks like you definitely messed up Debian, and it's supposed to be one of the rock solid distros out there.
Well,
definitely.
I mean, when it comes to newbies, man, there's nothing rock solid, okay? You know,
that's true.
When people go to Ubuntu forums and they have a problem, and you have some person you've never known, they're not a moderator, you know, they got like 2 posts on Ubuntu forum, and they're like, hey, run this, you know. And it could be some shell script that just, like, you know, just removes everything, or, you know, or delete this driver, or add this symlink here, and, you know, just doing it myself, you know, and just running stuff, you know, that was related to a problem that I was trying to fix. It just totally ruined it, and I'm not a newbie, dude. So, you know, for newbies out there, before you really jump first headlong into Linux, at least take the time to read a little bit of documentation, just a little bit, or how to burn a CD, or how to mount this, or how to do that. Go to YouTube. Look at YouTube is filled with Linux tutorials. We do them ourselves, and so go take a look. And please be careful with sudo and su. It's dangerous.
Yeah, one thing I would say too is that even though Debian is one of the rock solid distros, that's why we chose Debian to kind of make these points, was so that new users can see that there isn't that you don't want to just run every command that you see on a forum. You don't want to run everything as root. I think I can really second what Kleptos said, and to take a look and do some homework every time, because even if you're using something that says it's rock solid, you can still mess it up pretty easy.
Yeah,
One
definitely.
Last one. Go ahead there.
I was going to say, definitely read the wikis and the manuals. That's what they're there for, is for new people or even an experienced person trying to, install something. They're there for help. Don't trust some schmuck on a Ubuntu forum or another forum just because, I've been running this for this amount of time. That doesn't mean he knows what the hell he's doing. So definitely read the documentation before doing anything.
One last one for you guys. You guys are going to love this one. I was trying to install a desktop environment, and what I did was I ran it from terminal, installed it from a PPA, yay! And then I closed the terminal and rebooted. And then once I tried to reboot and go into the desktop environment, I was totally locked out for a good little while, so that was nice.
So is this that you crashed the terminal while it was updating something?
While I was installing a desktop environment and then tried to boot into the desktop environment, and it was bad. I was actually locked out of the system for a good little while until I rebooted and just went to the recovery side.
See, I can see that happening a lot often, especially if you're not on like a wall charger and you're on your laptop, your power goes out and stuff like that. Yeah, I can see that messing up any type of distro for sure.
Yeah,
here's what happened to me. Here's what happened to me one time. I was in, hibernation, okay? And I tried to come back out of it, and of course this is Catalyst, and I always have Catalyst issues. And I tried to come back out of it, but it didn't work. And so I hard rebooted, and I came back, and it was just totally corrupted, and I had to go back and edit fstab, and I had to do a bunch of other stuff to try to get it back working again. And so for someone like you or I, even we can break stuff.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, thanks for being here today, guys. For questions and stuff, we'll probably put a couple links to a lot of the things we mentioned today in the show notes. I don't know if there's anything else you guys wanted to mention before we wrap this up and call it a day.
Just a quick thing. Adrian Kosha has a Raspberry Pi giveaway in the forums. So if you guys have not joined the forums, please do so you can win yourself a new Raspberry Pi.
I love some pie.
Pie is good. And then also, if you guys have any suggestions about us breaking another distro, or of a cool app pick that you guys want us to talk about, just leave them down in the comments, or please join the forums and post in there.
Yeah, definitely. Always feel free to leave a comment with anything you think we should do. If you like the video, like the video. If you like all our videos, subscribe. We always are trying to come out with some. And any final words, Kleptos?
I actually like to say that we love challenges. If there's an aspect of Linux that we haven't properly exposed or haven't used properly, then let us know, and we haven't mentioned it, and we'll try it out, and we'll give it a good test run and see what we think about it, and maybe learn a little bit more.
Definitely. Well, thanks, guys, and we will see you all again next time.